Hello and welcome back to another episode of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today is a very special episode because it's part of the podcast-a-thon, where thousands of podcasters from all over talk with charities close to their heart. On today's show, I'll be talking with two people, a mother and daughter, who are doing something to help those in the neurodivergent community. So sit back, relax, and grab your favorite beverage, and let's learn more about them. See you there.
I wanna believe in the truth, but only see what I'm shown. Got the freedom to choose, but can't decide on my own. Follow what the group is thinking, bottle up my intuition till it's popping.
Hello and welcome back to a very special edition of Inside the Asperger Studios. Today I'm part of the podcast-a-thon, a group of thousands of podcasters nationwide, all talking to charities of their choice that mean something near and dear to their hearts. Today I'm talking with Alice Eckerman and Rebecca Irwin. Thank you for joining me, ladies.
Thank you for having us.
Not a problem. So I'll start off with you, Alice. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself?
Well, I am a quote unquote retired physician. Currently, I'm in my 70s. I am now working after my years and years as a pediatrician and what's called a pediatric intensivist, where I took care of critically ill children. I've always been an advocate for all children, but especially for children who can't really speak for themselves. So those who are very young or those who are older, but for whatever reason are unable to make their needs and their wants fully known. After I retired from my physician work, I became an executive and leadership coach. So now I work with a lot of people who have issues or struggles with their own career or life. And that gave me some insight into the fact that children don't stop struggling when they stop being children. And that in combination with what my daughter may tell you about her trajectory, it got me to say, what is the most valuable thing I might be able to do to help children at this point in my life? And my husband and I discussed the fact that what we really wanted to do was make a difference in the lives of people with neurodiversity or neurodivergent individuals and their families. Because not only the individual suffers, but the family as well. And when we looked at how difficult it was for families without large incomes to be able to get neurodivergent affirming therapies in their community, we were astounded. And that is really what stimulated us to start this nonprofit. Our nonprofit is very new. We've only had the government blessing for a few months, and we were delighted that you invited us to be on here so that we could talk about it.
Rebecca, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself as well?
Sure. I am a pediatric occupational therapist. I have had a lot of experiences working in school districts, working in children's homes for early intervention, private practice. And I have found in all of those contexts that I've been very unhappy with the treatment I'm seeing the children and the families receive. So, there's a lot of corruption, there's a lot of bureaucracy, and ultimately who suffers is the client or the student or the child or the family that is trying to access the care. And me, my mom will tell you my whole life, I have been incapable of being quiet when I see an injustice. So to me, the thing I needed to do was start my own business, my own clinic. So I founded the Lark Center in Norwood, Massachusetts. And the Lark Center has a very unique mission to really open up access to our disabled and neurodivergent communities to access neurodiversity-affirming, strengths-based, and multidisciplinary care. So that's what we do. We are not a not-for-profit. We are a business. And the work that we've been doing with the Lark Center has been so impactful on so many people. They notice that what we're doing is something that everyone should be accessing. But we're finding such a huge barrier in that insurance has not caught up. Insurance does not understand this model, so insurance won't pay for it. Government agencies don't understand this model, and it's too expensive for them. So things like DDS, and Social Security payments, they are not going to help cover this. So we're left feeling like private pay is the only way people can access this care. And being in the industry we're in, it feels like we should not be charging anybody for this care. This should be available to anyone that needs access to it. So, my mom kind of heard this plea and said, yeah, I know how we can help.
Yeah, I understand it wholeheartedly. I mean, as I was talking with your mother, one of the biggest issues in the neurodivergent community is money. Money for resources, money for schooling, money for going to your Lark Center. We're supposed to be a community, a world that helps each other out, but it seems that the neurodivergent community is left out of this. It's like everyone else is fighting to scramble to get their son, their daughter diagnosed, or get them the resources, or get them someplace where they can interact with each other. And it's just a fight with the insurance company saying, no, we can't help you, it's not there. And and then you got to find specialists who can test you. It's heartbreaking to see all these kids suffer.
Well, it is, and it's also heartbreaking when you see or hear about a lot of the standard programs trying to wring the neurodiversity out of the person. So fitting them into a square box when what they need is something that looks more like an octopus. It's heartbreaking. I'm sorry, Becca, I cut you off.
No, I was just commenting on how many barriers you just listed in one sentence. And that's really, what we're trying to do is remove some of those barriers, remove stigma, remove wait lists, remove financial barriers, remove gatekeepers.
I mean, I've talked with numerous people, and even in my own family, I have on my sister-in-law's side, was a teacher's aide, and she's like, she sees these kids and she knows they're neurodivergent because just the way their minds are and the way they act. Like there was this one girl she was telling me that was just running around in circles, and the teachers don't know how to deal with this. And it's like, and I was talking with her, and like, that's probably because she's got ADHD and her mind is constantly moving and she needs some kind of stimulation to slow her down.
Yeah.
Now, Alice, from looking at your website, you're only in the Massachusetts area. Are you planning to expand that?
We would love to be able to expand, but right now we don't even really. I think our first foray into fundraising was on Giving Tuesday. Now, for your listeners, that will seem like a really long time ago, but just so that that it was only about a month ago. And as the first, no, Becca's shaking her head. 3 months ago? Okay. I guess my neurodivergence is coming out as I get older.
November. It goes November, December, January, and now February.
Thank you, dear. It's not February yet, right? No, it's
tomorrow.
Tomorrow is. Now, for both of you, what made you want to dip your toes into helping those who are neurodivergent?
My entire life, I have been so drawn to people who are different. And I think it's because I myself am different and have been labeled as a problem, too loud, too obnoxious, too bossy, too fast, too emotional. my whole life since I was a child, and never quite felt like I fit in. I wasn't the same as anyone. I didn't meet anybody's expectations of what a little girl should be like. And I've always been drawn to others that were different. And so I think as a child, you don't notice it. You're just like, I guess I'm really good at befriending people that don't have any friends. But then as you get older and you realize sort of what's going on and how you can help and how you can make a difference, I am a deeply, deeply feeling person, like highly sensitive person. And the pain that I see other people experiencing is too painful for me. So I basically can't do nothing. I have to do something.
Mhm.
And so I will figure out what it is that I can access, that I can do to help a person. It doesn't have to be a neurodivergent person. If somebody is suffering, any person is suffering, and there's any possible thing I can do to help, I have to do something. I can't sit with it. It's too painful. So, I think job after job after job for me, I've been inclined, to work in human services so that I can directly impact other people. And I've just learned and learned and learned and gathered as much information and experience as I can, just surrounding myself with people who consider themselves not fitting in so that I can truly understand what matters to them. I wouldn't have said ultimately that I was part of that community, but now I understand I really am. So it's no longer just about helping other people, but helping myself and the whole community.
If I could say, Becca did in fact demonstrate all of what she's saying as a very young child, and was one of very few people. One of my husband's reasons for helping with this effort is that he has a younger brother who's developmentally disabled, and never had a diagnosis of who we don't know what, but he's living in a group home. And Becca from the earliest times was not afraid of him, whereas other people would be afraid of this person who sounded different, looked different, didn't talk the way others did. And not only was she never afraid, she actively went out of her way to befriend him, to get to know him on the level that he was capable of interacting at. And so yeah, so I think this sense and sensitivity runs very deep.
Now, Becca, why don't you tell me a little bit about the Lark Center and all the wonderful things you do for kids?
Sure. The Lark Center is a multidisciplinary therapy clinic, and we are proudly neurodiversity affirming in our approach to care. That basically what that means is that we're following the guidelines set forth by the neurodiversity movement. We do not engage in any compliance-based methodology at all. And we have a culture of really taking our clients' lead and using a strengths-based approach to treatment plan for them. What that looks like in practice is that when our clients come to us, they might say, I know exactly what I need, or they might say, I have no idea what we need, but we know we need something. And what they get is the benefit of the entire team, the multidisciplinary team, which includes mental health clinicians, occupational therapists, physical therapists, speech therapists, and educators. So we're working together as a team for every single client that comes in the door. You do not need to qualify for anything. You do not need a diagnosis. You do not need anything other than a desire to improve your current situation. And so we work through individual therapies, through group therapies, through special programs. We go into schools, we go into libraries, we go into community centers to educate and advocate on behalf of our clients. So I'd say, a majority of the work that we're doing is direct care, but the most impactful work that we're doing is through advocacy and teaching.
That brings up a good point. Is one of the things I love that you're doing with the Lark Center is the educational part, because there are so many facets out there that don't understand how to work with those who are neurodivergent. You've read horror stories, you've seen them on the news, neurodivergent kids out and police don't understand a meltdown from a trauma or from just a temper tantrum, and they wind up either hurting the kid or the kid winds up hurting himself, and the police or the firemen don't understand what's going on. And I just want to applaud you for that, because we need more people to educate the first responders and how to deal with those of us who are neurodivergent, especially the younger who really can't speak for themselves.
It's really been fantastic to see this movement starting to take hold. It's felt like such an uphill battle for me. Like I'm doing this thing, but nobody's listening. But I'm just starting to get the sense that people are listening and people are starting to reach out for more information. And I
Mhm.
think the more our agencies and the more our community members and the more our schools and the more our other community members are learning, the more they realize they need still to learn. So the rate at which people are reaching out to us for trainings and support is increasing, and I couldn't be more thrilled about that.
I mean, I am too. I mean, the more people get educated in how to deal with those who are autism, I mean, there are people who don't know about the autism cards that the kids should carry. I mean, I think it's first started in England and it's slowly coming to the US. But for everyone to get educated in, hey, this to spot the signs that there's a child here who's autistic, who's nonverbal. How do I approach him? Do I approach him? How do I figure out how to deal with somebody like that? It's so important because it's the help of the children's welfare.
I always say we
Now,
should be in the business of decreasing trauma, not
mhm.
traumatizing our children. So whatever we can do, whatever we can learn that helps us to reduce the amount of trauma we are inflicting on our children, we're going to do
now,
that.
now, tell me about some of the services that the Lark Center offers.
We have traditional one-on-one therapy, and that would be with an OT, with a PT, with speech therapist, with a mental health clinician. The unique thing about our services is that if you're working one-on-one with one single clinician, you're still benefiting from the knowledge and expertise of all of our clinicians. So through a consultative model, we're able to support, for example, if one of my mental health clinicians is working with a child for one-on-one therapy and they notice that this child just can't hold their body still, or they're becoming disturbed by the lights, or they are able to call one of the OTs to come in for a consult right in the moment. We're all here, we're all working together. And if not in the moment, then after the fact they can consult and say, hey, I would like to further support my child's sensory system during therapy. Do you have any recommendations? So yeah, let's turn the lights down. We have dimmers on all of our lights so that we can control the lights. Let's play music or white noise, or, how are we going to make them more comfortable auditorily? Maybe they need a vibrating seat cushion so that they can remain stimulated enough to pay attention and engage with you. And so this happens all the time. Our clinicians are constantly working together because you cannot separate one skill out of a person.
No, you can't. I
You
mean,
you are your whole self, no matter where you go and no matter what activity you're engaging in. So to say right now we're focusing on your mental health and later we'll focus on your fine motor makes absolutely no sense, right? All of your skills are all of your skills 100% of the time.
I love that. I mean, I talked with the assistant prime minister of autism several months back, and she told me about how one of the things they did was they talked with a a grocery store that they had a bunch of neurodivergent kids working at. And they say, listen, hey, listen, these lights are bothering them. The beeps on your cash register are bothering them. And they're like, well, we have to bring in an electrician to fix this. And they're like, well, can you? And they did. And then they didn't, then at that point they realized, oh my God, not only did it help those who are neurodivergent, but our business got better because the lights were dimmer, the noises were less, and people weren't as bothered.
Mm.
These are the principles of universal design, right? So if we make the environment a little bit more accessible for those who need it, it is, surprise, also more accessible for everybody else.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I always wanted to do, and I tried to do, was talk with the restaurant association and say, hey, I need to work with you guys because those who are neurodivergent can't walk into a restaurant with loud music blaring, bright lights because it bothers them. They can't go into your restaurant. I would love to talk and sit down with somebody and say, listen, your restaurant is non-inclusive to those who are neurodivergent because loud music, loud bright lights, and I would love to say, can you just lower that music so people aren't screaming at each other trying to talk?
Mhm.
Now, I looked at your social groups, and I am so impressed with the fact that you're very relevant with what's going on today with what kids love, like Pokemon and YouTube. I mean, these are current things that, I mean, I know from firsthand. My sister-in-law's got a cousin who's got a son who's like a level 2 autism, and he is addicted to Pokemon. So you are so current with the times, and YouTube too, because kids love YouTube. It's a
Right.
social thing, and they love making videos and they love posting them.
Right. So the way we plan and structure our social groups is really based on the best practice of using affinity groups to support neurodivergent individuals. Because if you are engaging in something like in like a group for we're going to increase our social skills, and I put that
Mhm.
in air quotes. I know you can't hear my air quotes, but what child is going to sign up to be told how to change how they interact with other people? That does not sound like a fun time. I'm not bought in. I'm going to be grumpy about it, and you're probably not going to end up teaching me anything. But if I have a Pokemon group, or if I have a YouTube influencers group, I'm really bought in. And hey, whatever social interactions are happening during that group, we're going to find a way to make that environment supportive for you and to make you feel successful. So it's very much more, it's natural, and the automatic responses of the people who are participating in it is what we're using as the basis to support them.
Mhm.
So it's a totally new way of thinking about social groups. Um,
I
all of
mean,
our social groups basically are targeting the same things, which is to help people increase their feelings of safety, connection, and autonomy. That's the bottom line. All of our groups are doing that. So whether it's through music, whether it's through art, whether it's through Pokemon, Minecraft,
yeah.
those are the bottom lines.
I mean, it's so perfect because you're right. You can't force someone to sit in the group and say, hey, we're going to teach you this. Because when you're neurodivergent, your mind is very narrow. You have your interests, you have your likes and your dislikes. You try to force them to do something, they're going to fight and they're going to resist. But if you hone in on what they love and say, hey, sit down and enjoy this group with everyone else who shares that interest, they're going to start talking with each other, talking about what they love. And then next thing you know, they've made friends. They start communicating and they feel good about themselves.
Exactly. They now have a community that they didn't before.
Mhm.
I mean, I mean, you said the magic word right there, community. When you start building a community of friends that have the same common interest, you feel so much better. You don't feel alone. You don't feel isolated. I mean, and then I think that's one of the biggest problems with those who are neurodivergent is you feel alone until you start realizing there's a huge community out there of people who share your interests. Just because you like this one thing doesn't mean you're the only one that likes it. You're gonna find other people that like it.
Well, and the amazing thing, of course, is that those needs, the
Mm-hmm.
need for safety, the need for community, the need for belonging, those are universal needs. You don't need those because you're neurodivergent.
No.
Everybody needs those. Those
Yeah.
are human needs. And why does our society go out of its way to separate how we offer those issue or conditions for safety, community, belonging to people whose brains just happen to work a little differently than two-thirds of the rest of the people, or maybe not even that many. So yeah.
I mean, which brings me to the next thing is I love that you have a program, your Skylark program is helping young adults learn about independent living. I talked with a guest a while back, and she realized that when you're neurodivergent and you're old enough and you move out on your own, you don't have a community. You don't feel it. So she created an affordable living place where for just those who are neurodivergent can create a community of each other, togetherness. And the one thing she saw though is that the higher of autism, those who are level one won't deal with the level threes. And she's just like, hey, why? They are autistic just like you. You need to be together. So tell me a little bit about the Skylark program and how you work with kids with helping them with independent living.
The Skylark program is really cool. You may think of it sort of like a day program, but it is so much different than any day program I have ever seen. Um, I have to say that I have never actually enjoyed a day program that I have experienced. I know you're chuckling because you know where I'm going with this. Usually, it is a bunch of individuals sitting in chairs watching TVs while some, nursing assistants monitor the room. Um, the Skylark program is set up to invite young adults between the ages of 18 and approximately 30 who have individual goals that are motivated by them. Okay, so if somebody has a goal of living independently, or somebody has a goal of being in a relationship, or if someone has a goal of going to college, or if someone has a goal of getting a job, and that's motivating to them and they're ready to work on it, they are invited to come and participate in our Skylark program, where we will support them in writing their own goals, setting their own expectations for their experience with us, and providing them with the support and therapy that they determine they need in order to be successful in those ways. So we do work with some of the area assisted living homes, because there's these homes set up for individuals with autism to all live together.
That's
However,
great.
there's no services there. So
Oh,
it's almost like they missed something, right? They invite you
mhm.
to come live independently, but with peers, and then they don't help you. They expect that you can make all of your meals. They expect you can manage your money. They expect you can do all of your laundry. And sometimes we need a little bit of extra help before we can do that on our own. So we love to work with those programs so that we can help bolster the confidence and bolster, the skill level, so that when you're faced with, okay, it's time for me to do this all by myself, you really feel like you can be successful.
I mean, that's so great because not many kids, I mean, unless they're taught by their parents, know how to do laundry, know how to budget. I remember my first time away from home at college. I had a checkbook and I did not know how to, I know your mom's laughing, you're laughing too. Nobody know, unless you're taught how to balance a checkbook
Huh?
and put everything you spend down and calculate it, you wind up either in the negative or don't know how much you have left in your checking account. And I did not know that until I called my mother up and she's like, you need to put down every expenditure you make and you need to subtract it from what you have. In laundry, you need to learn how hots and colds and hots will shrink your clothes and what what clothes need to be washed in cold water, what clothes need to be washed in hot water. I mean, these are things that are so rudimentarily that they need to be taught.
So and I just kind of want to bring it back to community a little bit too. So our guys are accessing one-on-one therapies in this
Hmm.
program. However, it is in the context of a group.
Mm.
So we probably have 5 participants at the same time, sharing the same space, cooking together, eating together, cleaning together, learning together, but they're being supported through one-on-one therapies as well. So it really is the best of both worlds, like a high level of support and individualized relationships, plus that feeling of community. They love to go out together. They'll go out and get ice cream together. They'll go to the store together. They'll go up to the library together. So it really is wonderful to see the ability to teach skills using such a natural and social context.
I mean, you said it right, and I've even written about it in my book, is that it's better to do something with somebody because when you do it alone, it's like time slows down. And you're like, when is this over? When is this over? And then like if you do it with somebody else, the way I describe it is like you're in a bubble of your own with that person, and your time is not focused on everything else, but it's focused on you and that person. And that's why that old adage of when you walk somewhere with somebody, time goes fast because you are talking with that person and you're not paying attention to anything else but that chat.
The magic of body doubling.
Yeah. I mean, it's community is so important, and people need to realize that the neurodivergent community is growing day by day. And that's why community is so important because if you have a buddy or you find someone that has your same interests, you've created a friend. And that's the biggest problem is they're lonely because they don't have friends or they have trouble making friends. But the minute you find someone who's autistic or neurodivergent like yourself who has your interest, all of a sudden you're no longer alone. You have a friend. So tell me about your feeding therapy. I mean, from my understanding of the autism community and from what I've been talked about, you kids got problems with texture, with I will only eat these certain foods. How do you work around that, or how do you teach them, hey, you got to try new things? And how do you deal with, I know, understand you don't like this texture, but please try it.
It's very funny. So my job is not to tell a child what he should and should not tolerate.
All right.
That's not my job, right? So if you have sensory aversions and I force you to experience what's aversive to you, that's trauma. So our approach to feeding therapy is completely different. It is very play-based and exploratory. It prioritizes exploration and understanding of your own experiences. So, as we're exploring different textures, different tastes, different smells, we're taking an inventory of how our body responds to those things. And we're destigmatizing the whole situation.
Mhm.
So, oftentimes, I will eat a food and I will gag and I will spit it out on the table in front of them and go, oh, well, and then move on and do something else. So, my job is to really take away the anxiety related to food. And often I have to undo a lot of what has previously been done, from well meaning parents that are just terrified that their child is not eating enough or eating well enough. Um, but what often happens is we violate children's body autonomy
Hmm.
often. Hands go, shoving towards faces and a grimace is ignored. And so it might seem like nothing to a parent. It might seem like, well, he's got to eat, so I'm going to shove it in his face.
Hmm.
But what's happening is the degrading of trust in that relationship. And so in that situation, what's natural is for your body to go into protective mode. And if you've had a bad experience where someone has forced you to eat something that you haven't liked, or if you ate something that didn't feel safe to you, the natural response of your brain and body is to shut that down.
Mm-hmm.
And so oftentimes it's not really that a child is so particular that they can only tolerate one food. Oftentimes it is that if I'm not that protective of myself, I'm in danger. So my job as a feeding therapist is to take away the fear and rebuild that relationship and that feeling of safety around food so that my clients can access what they want to and need to access. It is never my job to say, you have to try this or you have to eat this. It's my job to make sure that you feel safe and can safely and appropriately access your nutrition.
That's so important. I mean, because parents who try to get their kids to eat, I think part of the problem is they get so frustrated that their kids are only eating one thing that their mind doesn't think, oh, I can't force this on him. They just get frustrated and they just stick it in their face, and they don't realize that they're violating their kids' own trust of them as a parent by letting them slowly try something on their own. You're right. They're building that trust with that food, and they're realizing, oh, I do like this. I wonder why I've never tried it before. I actually I had a guest on my show a while back, and he would be perfect for your feeding therapy for your clients to watch. His name was Jack. He started eating only certain things, and I was talking with him and his mom, and all of a sudden one day he started trying new foods. And he's trying new foods every day, and he's videotaping it, and he's rating each food, and he's enjoying it. And I asked him, why did you start trying new foods? He's like, well, I was getting bored of just eating the same thing, and I'm going away to college, and I wanted new things. I'm like, that's perfect. That's the exact example of why you should, because you're gonna grow bored of the same thing over and over and over again.
So important that he did that on his own terms.
Mhm.
Yeah, it is important because, I mean, like you said, you don't want to violate your child's trust of you and the food, because then it just becomes, I won't eat this. No, I don't want this.
Mhm.
Now, tell me about the guardianship services, Rebecca.
Guardianship is something that we've been experiencing a lot of issues with.
Okay.
So, for example, a parent will call us and say, I need to refer my young adult child. And we say, well, are you the guardian? Well, no. Okay, well, then your child needs to refer themselves. But they can't refer themselves. Well, then do they have a guardian? No, they don't have a guardian. So it just has kind of dawned on us how many parents have not been counseled appropriately about whether or not they need to seek legal guardianship for their adult child. And so my team was able to partner with a local psychologist.
Mhm.
So we now offer a comprehensive ability to have your child assessed for the guardianship process between one of our social workers and the psychologist that we partner with. And this is a relatively new service that we're offering that basically just came into being because we were noticing there was a need.
Mhm.
And so that just helps to protect some of our young adult clients who may not have any legal protections. For example, if they need to make a medical decision about themselves, or if they need to make a legal decision, about where they're living or how they're spending their money. I think oftentimes a parent will just assume that since their child is disabled, they're automatically going to be their lifelong guardian. It doesn't
Oh,
automatically happen. Parents need help with this.
yeah, I mean, that's one of the biggest things is I had talked with a guest a long time ago, and I was like, your parents look at it in one way, in one perspective. What's going to happen to my child when I'm gone? But they don't. People don't look at it the other way. The child's thinking, what's going to happen to me? What am I going to do? Who's going to look over me? And that's why your guardianship program is so important, is you got somebody to say, hey, we're gonna make sure you have somebody
Mhm.
to help you if you need that help in the long run. Now, I want to circle back to your training program. How well and how successful has it become?
This is actually very cool. So we started in sort of two areas, one being preschools
Mm-hmm.
and one being, which also includes daycares, and one being libraries.
Mm.
And the library trainings we started because libraries are a public service.
Mm-hmm.
They are free. They're accessed by any and every member of the community. And it turns out librarians are extremely eager to know how they can better serve the community. I love librarians. They're wonderful people. But they are just so thirsty for knowledge about how they can better serve the community. So my colleague, Danielle Colwell, she is an expert trainer. She, along with one of our other colleagues, Cassie Frank, came up with an amazing library training on neurodiversity. It basically goes through the underlying sort of theory for neurodiversity, and then quickly goes into how it looks in practice to change old ways of thinking and implement sort of new ways of being more autonomy supportive, and goes through several scenarios of how in a space like the library, you can identify who maybe needs what kind of support, accommodation, how to approach to ask what a person needs, how to provide what we were just talking about, how to provide some of those best practice accommodations that can support everybody at the library, not just a few people. And so we started with just training our local library here. And without our knowledge, they had sent out to the national like Society of Libraries. And then we started getting requests all over the place to go do trainings for all of the other libraries in this network. And so we've had about one or two a month scheduled for libraries. And it looks like we'll be going to a national convention for librarians with this training. Similarly, we've been doing trainings for daycares and preschools. These are going very well. I think they are less eager. So schools in general don't like being told what to do or that they should change. As we're all painfully aware, schools tend to be 20, 30, 40 years behind current research. So it's definitely been a harder sell. We have some private preschools that are very, very eager to get help. They don't know what kind of help they need, but they know that what they're doing isn't working, because you can't possibly have 100% of your preschool children cannot be disabled.
No, true.
So if you're having problems with 100%, 90% of your class is dysregulated, throwing things, biting people, this is not any child's fault. This is not any child's disability. This is the school. The school is disabled. So we have been able to go into schools and say, listen, you have to change everything. You have to change your expectations. You have to change what it looks like in here. You have to get rid of the clutter. You have to get rid of these demands you're placing on the kids. You have to let them move. You have to let them play. And so some schools have been very receptive. Some schools don't want to hear that because teachers like to say, this is the way I've always done it. This is the way I'm going to do it. But it's such a breath of fresh air when we get a call from a school going, we know what we're doing isn't working and we're open to anything.
I mean, that seems to be the picture. You said it right there, is schools are so backwards that they are not trained to deal with the neurodivergence. I have talked with many people and they've said, listen, the schools are so backwards. They know nothing about neurodivergency. They don't know they don't know if their child's neurodivergent. They don't know if they need an IEP. there are parents that are coming in who aren't aware they need an IEP, and it's just like, what do we do with these kids if we don't know if they're neurodivergent or not? How do we deal with someone whose mind is all over the place? How do we keep them focused?
And then my question becomes, why do we have to deal with them at all? Why don't we change what we're doing so that they're
Yeah.
comfortable just the way they are? I mean, the number of autistic children that I have worked with that people think are incapable of learning.
Yeah.
I hear over and over again that this child can't learn. Have you watched them explore the sandbox? They sure
Yeah.
can learn. Have you watched them climb a fence? They sure can learn.
Yeah.
They're learning through their body.
Hmm.
So you better hurry up and figure out how to teach through their body so they can learn. Because if you keep asking them to do the same thing of sitting in this chair and listening to me talk and doing this worksheet, you are failing, not them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it reminds me, I had a guest and we were talking, and he's like, he gave this lecture to these neurodivergent kids on dating and relationships, and he goes back to the woman, she goes, that set it up. He goes, how did it go? And she's like, they weren't looking, they weren't listening. And she's like, wrong. They may not be looking at you, but they were listening to every word you said. Just because we don't look at you eye to eye doesn't mean we're hearing every word you say. And that's one of the problems with teachers is they assume because we're not looking at you eye to eye that we're not listening to you, but we are, and they don't understand that.
Well,
And
anyhow, that's one of the one of many, many, many
mhm,
reasons, right? Why we started Lift Every Child, and of course, want to be sure that we emphasize it's not just for children, right? But by lifting every child, we help the young adults as well. And you
mhm,
asked before about why we were only, serving a small area, and really that's because right now that we can't afford to do much more. So, we are looking forward to being able to help individuals who are seeking the kind of neurodiversity affirming
mhm,
therapies that Becca has described. And we're also looking forward to helping support programs, let's say the kind of program like Skylark, right, where we might be able, in helping to support a program like that, we'd be helping multiple individuals at once.
mhm.
And that would be something that we are hoping to be able to do, because this kind of work is so important, and so, you know by not giving up on these kids when they're little, we will have a whole bunch more adults who will contribute more to our society, right? And so every penny invested now becomes the equivalent of hundreds of thousands of dollars, in the future, because it's so life-giving, it's so life-supporting. And every time somebody learns how to do something that's good for a neurodivergent child, they're learning to do something good for everyone,
Yeah. I
and paying
mean,
attention to you, because I can tell that you're interested by the way you move as opposed to looking me in the eye.
mhm.
And I won't, as a preschool, when Becca, who's sitting in front of you, when she was in preschool, she used to love to sing herself to sleep. And that meant that the preschool started locking her in a closet
Oh God.
so that the other children wouldn't have to hear her. What a horrible thing. So
I mean,
so we just don't have a society that's good enough for anybody.
oh, I
That's
mean, you're right, Alice. I mean, a lot of neurodivergent children are being lost for the cracks.
Yeah.
And it's either the schools who don't know how to deal with them, it's the parents who've given up on them because they're beyond their wits' end or don't have the money to pay for the services to get them tested. That's why I love Lift Every Child, because you're offering money saying, hey, You need these services. They're important for you to get your child tested, because without these services, you can't get the help you need. I've seen countless people go, how important is it for me to get my child tested, or for me to get tested when I'm older in life? And I'm thinking, you may still be older than life, but you still may need to get yourself tested, because you can still get the help you need and clarification of why you are the way you are. I mean, I've talked to countless parents who have told me after getting their kid tested, they realize, oh my God, I have the same traits as my child. I need to get myself tested too.
Mhm.
And I'm like, yeah, and it's an eye opener, isn't it? And they're like, yes. It explains so much of why my past was different and why people looked at me differently.
Mhm. Yeah.
I do very much endorse testing so that people can know and they can understand that they're not just weird or they're not dysfunctional, but that they are belonging to a different kind of community. However, I believe that that should not be gatekeeping from someone accessing their services.
True.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because there are so many children out there who can't afford to get the testing, but the parents know their child is autistic just by the fact that they are either nonverbal and they won't talk for a long time, or just by the way they act.
Yeah.
And these services need to be available to everybody. And it is so important for what you're doing with the Lark Center, and what, Alice, what you're doing with Lift Every Child. And it's near and dear to my heart, as I am autistic myself, and it means the world to me for what you both are doing.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
You
Yep.
know, I think you yourself are just the fact that you're running a successful podcast, right? That's got to speak to the community and say, hey, you can do it, right?
Mhm.
There are ways in our, society's not all bad, and there are opportunities, and give yourself a little grace and understand that you may do it very differently than the person that lives next door to you. But it's not going to make it worse. It very well may make it better because
Mhm.
you've got the ability to see things a little bit differently.
I mean, I mean, most of it is the way our country is built. I mean, we are forced on this whole negative attitude of things. We get scared of one negative experience, and then we put ourselves in this little bubble, and we don't want to leave. And this is why I wrote my book, is because, hey, one experience is an experience. It's something you've done.
Yeah.
It's something to put a check mark on your life saying, hey, I did this thing, but you need to keep going. You can't let one little thing stop you and ruin your time.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you both, how can people get involved, either donating to Lift Every Child or find out more about the Lark services?
Well, Lift Every Child, we have our website, which is the predominant place where we can accept donations, and we do that through Zephy, which does not take a cut out of what people donate, so we're not losing any of that money. And our website is just www.lifteverychild.org. And we would love to see folks, and they can come and look and see how else they might want to get involved.
The Lark Center can be accessed on social media through Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn. And our website is www.thelarkcenter.com. And all of our information about social groups and individual therapies and our programs is on the website.
And that wraps up this special episode of the Podcast-a-thon. And from inside the Asperger Studios, I'm Reed Miles. That was Alice Ackerman and Rebecca Irwin. Thank you, ladies. And if you guys enjoyed it, feel free to visit Podcast-a-thon to discover hundreds of other associations through voices and talents of amazing podcasters. And I'll see you all in the next one. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.